This morning, we have a very special guest on The Balancing Act. She's the daughter of one of the most famous clowns in the world. Back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, Chester Bobo Barnett was a veteran performer for the Shrine Circus, always making crowds laugh. He also appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show and other productions. To many who watched him on stage, he was larger than life, a star persona they looked up to. But for Bonnie Barnett, her father was a stranger, the man behind the makeup. This morning, Bonnie joins us to talk about an autobiographical book she wrote for her father called Bobo's Daughter. Good morning, Bonnie.
Good morning, Christy.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Now,
my pleasure.
We have some amazing black and white video of your father, and as our viewers watch, tell us about him.
Well, my father was a very famous clown. He came out in a little tiny car. He was 6'4". He had about 7 little dogs and a skunk and a horn and a collapsible suitcase. And the shock of him being 6'4", popping out of this small car was incredible.
I remember when you showed me that video, I was amazed.
Yeah, it is.
Now, he made so many people laugh, so many people went to go watch him. And you write in your book that you never knew him. In fact, and I'm going to quote, "You were a spectator in the crowd." What do you mean?
Well, I was. My parents were married for 10 years. My mom was a famous clown as well. And when I was born, he left. So I grew up without knowing him at all. And one morning, I was around 4, and my mom came into my bedroom and said, "We're going to the circus and we're going to see Daddy." And I didn't know what either one of them was. So we went to the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, and we went through the back part of the circus, which was, you know, filled with all these sights and smells and all kinds of things that were so different from my world. And all of a sudden, this giant of a man picks me up in clown makeup and kisses me. And someone from the leading newspaper in LA happened to be there as a photographer, snapped the picture, and it was on the front page of the paper the next day.
And that's the picture you actually use for the cover of your book. This is the picture of your father when you're 4 years old, picking you up and kissing you.
It was, and later in life, after I found him, I had an artist take that tattered old photograph from that newspaper and paint this picture.
Now, you didn't see him after that day for many, many years.
Many years.
How was it for you to be in your teens, just growing up without him, not having that father figure? It must have been so difficult.
It is. It was. It was, you know, at first you really don't notice.
Right.
You know, and then you get into your teens and you kind of look around and it's like you realize everyone else has a mom and a dad and you don't. So I think the ultimate humiliation was having to go to the Brownie Scout father-daughter banquet, you know, with somebody else's dad. And, you know, there were just, it just had I had a hole in my heart about this.
I understand.
And I wanted to find him.
And you found him, and this was the part of the book that I just was amazed by your courage. You're 31 years old, and you say, "I'm gonna go find my father." Tell us about that.
I started to write this book thinking it was gonna be about Mom and Dad. But later on, I found out it was about the journey of finding him. And I found it was just a series of miracles. And the addresses and the possibilities of finding him kept being revealed to me. And I booked 10 Midwestern cities. It was in the middle of winter. Being a West Coast person, I didn't understand winter. So I went to one of the places in Illinois, and I knocked on the front door of this house, not knowing if he was really there and not knowing what to expect. And the door opened, and there was a really old man on 2 canes, and he had cataracts. And I started to get playful with him. And I said, "Well, do you know me? Do you know me?" And he looked at me and said, "Bonnie?" Yeah.
And you spent a week with him.
I did, and that was the week that we became father and daughter.
You write in your book, "During that week, my father became a very human man, full of faults, regrets, and love."
Yeah. Well, when I got in the house, I was almost inappropriate in confronting him. You know?
Sure.
And he kept saying, "I'll tell you later, I'll tell you later." And what happened was, of course, you know, I wound up spending a week. I wasn't sure if I was going to spend an hour there or longer. And I think that we finally got to a place where there was trust and love exchanged. And I think that when he invited me to spend the night on his Naugahyde couch instead of at the hotel, I knew that we had crossed over a bridge. And it was really, I was able to share love with him. And
now, after that week, you did not see him again. You remained in contact with him, but there were no more visits, correct?
No more visits.
Why?
Well, he was frail at that time, and he was 78, and the whole experience of me being there, I think, really took a lot out of him.
I'm sure.
And he got very sick after I left.
So then you decided to write your book.
I did.
Did you do it for you, or did you do it for him?
This experience was, almost miraculous in terms of the healing and the knowledge that we both gained from it. I had already forgiven him before I got there. But one of the things that happened was that I was able, and I loved him, sight unseen. And no particular, I mean, there wasn't any reason for me to love him because he really was not a dad to me. But what happened was that he was able to love me back. And that was the miracle of the healing. And it was such a powerful experience. I just always knew I needed to share it. I just felt like, perhaps, being the daughter of two famous clowns is not an ordinary experience.
No, it's not.
So, and you always feel just a little different, But on the other hand, it was like, I guess God knew that I was going to be telling everybody, so.
You said you had a hole in your heart. No more?
No more.
That's great.
No more.
Bonnie, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Oh, it's my pleasure,
No, it has
Christine.
been an honor for me. I really want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you'd like to read Bonnie's story, Bobo's Daughter, go to her website, bobosdaughter.com.